Do you ever find yourself thinking things that you don't really want to be thinking or doing things that you don't really want to be doing? Like maybe you overconsume alcohol, maybe you eat too much, maybe you're in a toxic relationship that you haven't been able to find a way out of. Maybe you have anxiety. Maybe you have crippling thoughts. Maybe you constantly compare yourself to other people that are the same age as you, and you start ticking boxes that they've ticked that you haven't ticked yet in your life. And so you start having these thoughts and these behaviors that you know they're really not good for you, and they really don't support your overall goal of who you want to be as a person. Yet you find yourself continuing to engage in these thoughts and behaviors over and over again. I know I am certainly guilty of this. This happens to me all the time. Well, one of the ways that I found to deal with this is something that I learned in the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And what he says in this book is that you are not your mind. Your mind is a tool. It's an instrument that you use to execute tasks, to achieve goals, etc. It is nothing more than a tool or an instrument. So the same way you use a hammer with a nail, you use your mind to execute tasks and achieve goals. The problem is most people haven't figured this out, and they think that they are their mind. So they think they are the hammer. And because of that, they're letting the hammer run the show. They're letting the hammer control their lives. I mean, imagine that. Imagine allowing a tool to dictate the direction of your life. But that's exactly what most people are doing by not realizing that they are not their minds. Now, here's the problem. The problem is that your mind is a survival mechanism, and one of its primary responsibilities is to keep you safe and protect you. And one of the ways that it does this is by identifying things that are unfamiliar to you and keeping them away from you, and attracting you to things that are familiar to you. Why? Because the mind associates familiarity with safety. Because if you've done something for any length of time over and over again and you haven't died yet, well, the mind thinks, okay, this isn't going to kill me, so it must be safe. The problem is that your mind will then start associating behaviors and thoughts that are not good for you as potentially beneficial because they appear safe, because they are familiar. And so what winds up happening is you continue to engage in these thoughts and behaviors because they are familiar to you, because you've done them for so long, even though they don't serve you. Because the idea of doing the opposite, of not engaging in that thought or taking on a different behavior, actually seems more dangerous to your mind because it's unfamiliar to your mind. And so the very first step in fixing this issue is just simply observing it. So the next time you have a thought that doesn't serve you, or that you know in your heart you really don't want to have, and you know there's really no benefit to it, the first step is to just step back and observe that it's happening. Don't try to fight it. Don't try to counter it. Just observe that it's taking place. Once you observe that it's taking place, what this does is it puts you into a higher state of consciousness. And what happens is you begin to realize that you are not your mind, because if you were, you wouldn't be able to make that observation. The hammer cannot observe itself, but you can. You've been given powers and faculties that enable you to observe your thoughts almost as a third party. This immediately puts you into a higher state of consciousness. And like I said, what I found is this is an excellent first step in stopping myself from engaging in behaviors and thoughts that I know do not serve me and do not serve my overall purpose and goals in life, but somehow I find myself doing them over and over and over again. It's realizing that the reason why I'm doing them over and over and over again is because my mind thinks that they are safe because they are familiar. But just because something is familiar to you and may feel safe to you doesn't mean it's beneficial to you. In fact, I would say that the next version of yourself is on the opposite side of what feels familiar and safe to you. And the more used you get to experiencing things that take you out of your comfort zone, things that make you feel uncomfortable, things that make you feel vulnerable, the more you grow as a person and the better the chance you have of becoming the person that you want to be by eliminating these toxic thoughts and behaviors.